Welcome back to the Freedom First podcast. We are your hosts, Blaine Smotherman
and Eric Kern.
This episode is brought to you in part by Jeffries Firearms Training.
Shooters making shooters. For more information, contact owner Ronnie Jeffries on Instagram at Jeffries Firearms Training.
Are you looking for a wide variety of firearms, ammunition, and equipment? NAG Industries is a premium, local, veteran, and family-owned company in Bakersfield, California. They offer expertise in sales, repair, enhancement, and service of a wide variety of firearms, ammunition, and equipment with a focus on law enforcement and government agencies. For more information, you can visit them on Instagram at in.a.g_industries, through email info@nagindustries.com, or you can give them a call at 661-364-9726. NAG Industries, pride in what we do. Welcome. You have now entered the Freedom First podcast,
where we have conversations with some of the most interesting human beings on the planet.
People who live and breathe in Freedom First mentality. On this episode, we have a guest that really needs no introduction at all. He's a radio personality, comedian, an actor, and a podcaster. And he's kind of the guy that started the whole idea of podcasting. And in 2011, according to Guinness Books of World Record, he had the most downloaded podcast in the world. His most notable work is when he hosted the show Loveline with Dr. Drew from 1995 to 2005. He's been on Dancing with the Stars, Celebrity Apprentice. His most recent book is I Am Your Emotional Support Animal, Navigating Our All Woke, No Joke Culture. He's an entrepreneur with his drink company, Carolla Drinks. He's a producer. And on this episode, we talked a lot about his love and passion for automobile racing and cars. He has so much insight and wisdom to share. It was such an honor and a pleasure to share these moments and sit down and talk with him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Adam Carolla. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for, I'm honored to have you on and join us today. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
All right. So let's kind of kick it off. I don't want to waste too much of your time today, but man, I mean, I appreciate you're the podfather of it all. So thanks for coming on. So, so my name is Blaine Smotherman, and this is the Freedom First podcast. And we kind of have a little segment at the beginning called the Freedom Minute. And this is just some rapid fire questions just to get us kind of fired up and break the ice a little bit.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is the most memorable moment in your career thus far?
Boy, let's see. When I was just starting in my career, it's like 1994. I was working for a local radio station. I was doing a character, and nobody knew who I was, but it was an LA radio station, and I was backstage at a concert, and they had a lot of celebrities there.
Okay.
And I heard Henry Winkler, the Fonz, say, where's that guy? He said my character's name, Mr. He said, where is that guy? And I said, I overheard him. I said, I'm Mr. Burcham as I was walking by. And he shook my hand with two hands. And he said, nobody can do what you do. You're brilliant. And I was like, wow, the Fonz said I was brilliant. I used to watch that guy on TV when I was 10 years old. And now he's telling me I'm brilliant. That was probably the biggest celebrity. That was the biggest day of my career.
What an interaction. Nice. So this is the Freedom First podcast, and, freedom obviously means a lot to you, and a lot to us as well. So what does freedom mean to you?
Well, I think it's kind of being in charge of yourself, in charge of your family, and being able to make decisions, Want to ride a motorcycle? You can ride a motorcycle. Everyone's going to tell you it's dangerous. You want to smoke? You can smoke. Everyone will tell you it's dangerous. I like to race cars. A lot of people think that's dangerous, but I have the freedom to make that decision and do it because I get to decide, if I choose to put myself in harm's way. So it's just really the freedom to make your own choices and decisions.
So this next question, I know obviously you're a car guy. I grew up around racing. My dad raced open wheel modifieds, and I actually grew up racing open wheel micro sprints and sprint cars. So what is your favorite car in your collection, and what's a car that you don't have in a collection you'd like to acquire?
Well, your audience will probably have to Google some of this, but I would say that one of my favorite cars in my collection is probably a Porsche 935, 1979. Paul Newman drove it to a class win at Le Mans. It also won overall at the 24 Hours of Daytona with Bobby Rahal. Ryan Redmond driving it, and it also won outright at Sebring, the 12 Hours of Sebring. So the big endurance races are Sebring, Daytona, and Le Mans. And this car, I think it ran Le Mans maybe 4 times, ran Daytona maybe 5 times, ran Sebring 5 times, and it won in all those venues. So that would definitely be my favorite car in the collection. Car that I've always loved, and I've raced against these cars, and they just look beautiful. And it's the one maybe you or your fans might have to Google, is a 1980 BMW M1 Pro car. Not just the M1 in street form, but the race trim Pro car. That to me is a beautiful car.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know you have an amazing collection. And who was your racing hero growing up?
I grew up poor, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and my dad didn't race like your dad, and I didn't go to any races, so I don't really have any people I like. Right? I love cars. I love race cars. I love sports cars. I just felt like I was never going to own one. I was so far away from any kind of racing that I just never, I had no heroes. I had nobody to look up to.
Did you have any heroes like later on? You mentioned like, Ray Halls and some of those IndyCar open wheel drivers, any Formula One or anything that like later on, once you actually started, being able to purchase or see what was out there?
Well, I mean, obviously there's your perennials, your Jackie Stewarts and your Emerson Fittipaldis, and, those kind of guys back then, and your Sennas and all Mario Andretti, like all that stuff was super cool. But I've never really, like when people say like, who's your comedic heroes or stand-up heroes or racing heroes, I never really thought that way. I just wanted to do things, and I tried to do them, but I never really was inspired by those who came before me.
Sure. Last question before we jump into your story. You've gotten to sit down with a lot of people, throughout your years. And if you could sit down and have a conversation with anyone throughout history, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Well, in a weird way, throughout history, I guess, trying to think, I'm awash with ideas of who I'd like to talk to. I imagine I would talk to someone like Ben Franklin, because not only was he a statesman, but he was an inventor, and I would show him my iPhone and show him my cars and show him all the innovation, and his head would explode and he would marvel at it. And then I would explain to him, no one really cares. which is sad.
I know it is. Well, yeah, that would be, imagine that conversation and bringing him back and being like, here's what happened. And just his mind blown. And you're like, well, it's like, it's actually, unfortunately, not a big deal right now, but yeah.
Yeah, most people are complain. They talk on their phone to someone who's in Chicago, and if the phone hangs up, they throw it out the window of their car.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for answering those questions, Adam. And, I just want to jump in your story. And, you grew up in the San Fernando Valley. And, what was your childhood like? What were what did your parents do? How did that all kind of come to fruition?
Well, my mom was kind of, I'd say stay-at-home mom, but she was more just stay-at-home. She didn't really do a lot of momming. She was a welfare food stamp recipient. Kind of hung out and lived off the dole, just sort of took what people would give her. We lived in a beat up old ratty house that my grandparents owned, a second house. And my mom just sort of hung out. She was sort of depressed, kind of a hippie, lived in a free house, took welfare, and just kind of hung out. So she didn't really do much. And my dad was sort of on again, off again, substitute teacher, and did little, ended up working at basically an orphanage, and was, made a very modest, living, and lived a very modest life. And my parents got divorced, and my parents were very just kind of stay in, hang out. They didn't really have a team or favorite steak joint to hang out or favorite band or anything. Everyone was just kind of live and let live. And I just sort of raised myself. I just kind of hung out at I'd go to friends' house, eat dinner at their house, raid their pantry, and kind of crappy student, just sort of kind of poor guy, just kind of kicked around the valley. I didn't really have much. I was good at football. I liked sports, and sports was sort of what I did, but I didn't really have much direction.
So did the sports kind of keep you, like in school and focused a little bit? Like, 'cause you were a pretty good high school football player, right? In LA?
Yeah, I was all Valley football player. And I got recruited to play at a couple of small colleges. Some you never heard of, some maybe you have heard of. And yeah, it kind of gave me some discipline, gave me some focus, gave me a little bit of a direction, kind of something to work on, kind of stayed occupied with it. So that sports, football especially, definitely gave me some focus. That's for sure.
And I mean, you basically start working in a lot of laborious jobs, right? In construction, carpet cleaning, carpentry, and these different trades. Because you didn't attend college, you didn't go to college. So what did you kind of learn about work ethic, through those early jobs, that also obviously required a lot of labor?
Well, I learned that if you start off doing labor, like I started off just literally digging ditches and cleaning up garbage and demoing out stucco and just real dirty, bad jobs. I kind of learned that if you want to get to the next level, like, get inside the house, start to learn carpentry, because that was about all I had. I was, maybe I could be an apprentice, or someone could teach me something. I learned that I'd have to kind of impress them doing the labor, that, I couldn't be lazy and bad and, no count when it came to doing the labor, and then kind of expect them to see something in me and, moved me into the house to maybe start working with some tools. So, my first kind of instinct was to show them that I was a hard worker and that I was, on time and consistent, dedicated, that kind of stuff. But the work was so hard that, when you're trying to show someone you're a great ditch digger, you work pretty hard because you're just digging ditches, for 10 hours a day.
Right.
But I think I needed the job very badly. I didn't have any plan B. And I understood that if I didn't even know if I understood it. I was just like, you're getting $7 an hour. This is your job. Show up and do it. And don't ever let anyone see you sitting or resting or drinking water or chatting or anything. You're on the clock. And it was a little more desperation, really, than it was anything.
So, going from those laborers jobs, how did that how did you get into working construction and digging ditches, and then eventually, getting your foot into the entertainment industry?
I was, I made it into my early 20s. I was working real hard. I was driving a truck. I would probably work my way up to, junior carpenter, apprentice, something. I was probably making $10 an hour, and it was still kind of a bad existence. No air conditioning, beat up truck and all that. And I just started sort of thinking about like, well, you like cars. Well, you're never going to have a cool sports car because you're driving a truck and you need it for work, and you can't afford 2 cars, and air conditioning, and maybe owning your own home one day and stuff like that. It all seemed not very doable doing what I was doing. And I thought, well, what else could you do? I was a bad student, and I couldn't read or write very well. So I knew it really wasn't going to happen on the corporate front. And I knew I wasn't, going to go to college and become a dentist or something. So I thought, really the only other thing I think I can do is comedy. I think I could do comedy. That was kind of my thought.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I started pecking away at comedy. I thought, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any training. I was a jock in high school, and now I'm a carpenter, and so there's not much there in terms of stage time or any of that. But I think I have a sense of humor, and I think if I keep pecking away at it, maybe by the time I'm 30, I could be doing something in that world. Not getting rich or on TV or anything. I was just kind of thinking about working with people that were creative versus the guys I was working with on the construction site,
Right. And so it sounds like, you kind of get into it, and, you basically, you want those cars and those different types of things. And were you always a funny like guy growing up? Is that how you kind of like, we wanted to get into comedy, or?
Yeah. I knew I was funny. I knew it, but I also didn't really know. I don't know. It's like knowing you're athletic, but
right.
Thinking, are you going to play for the Yankees? Like it all seemed pretty far fetched, even though, to stay with the analogy, I was like, I think I'm a better athlete than half the guys on the Yankees, but I don't think I'm ever going to get a tryout for the Yankees. I can't ever see. I can't even see how that would happen. That was kind of my mindset.
Okay, so you get in, and obviously you have all these award-winning shows. You're on Loveline with your good friend Dr. Drew, and so once you get into the industry, where does it go from there? Because you started Loveline in what, 1995?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1990.
Yeah. I got into show business, and I quickly realized I was right. Like, I am funnier than these people.
Okay.
And I knew it, and they knew it too. Like, this guy's funnier than us. Like, that was the general conceit, but it still didn't really mean there was a roadmap laid out.
Right.
The plan was, I'm in now, and I'm funny, and I'm just not going to say no to anything, and I'm just going to keep this thing going as long as I can. I don't want to go back to carpentry, and let's just keep moving forward and keep creating things and keep collaborating and keep working on projects. And it doesn't matter whether you're getting paid or not, you should be working on stuff all the time. And that was just kind of my mindset. Like, I knew what work was.
Yeah. And so
and I still feel that way. Like, I understand what work is, and I don't really count this as work. Sometimes people say to me, why do you do so many things? Or why don't you take a break or take a weekend off or whatever? And I always just kind of go, I don't know. It doesn't feel like work to me. I used to work. Work is this isn't.
Okay. So you knew what work was, digging ditches and being in construction. And obviously you probably didn't, you didn't want to go back to that, but you continue that same mindset and that same work ethic. And it shows, in show business and everything else you have going on. And you're just accepting this podcast and coming on and talking to us today. It's just shows, all the hard work you put in.
Yeah, people. I do have people say, what are you doing this for? What are you doing that for? Why are you doing this guy's show? Why are you doing that guy's show? And I just go, I don't know. They asked. And it doesn't really feel like work to me. So
yeah. Like
maybe I overdo it a little sometimes, but that's just kind of my mindset.
Yeah. What's that? What's that? The Navy SEAL quotes, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. I think that's how it goes. Yeah. So, you go through and you'll have all these, award-winning shows. Your ratings are up, Loveline, and your journey through the industry. And, obviously you're very outspoken, whether it's in, your ideology, your politics. So, what's your experience been? You're a common sense guy. You're not you're not a leftist, obviously, and you're not a super right, Trump supporter necessarily, but you're a common sense guy. So what's the experience being like, especially the last, decade, not being this super leftist in, a leftist Hollywood?
Well, the leftists are not really very nuanced. You're either for them or against them. You can't take a kind of reasoned middle position with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just who they are. You got to be all in on all their crazy ideas. And if you're not all in on all the crazy ideas, then you're, kind of considered right wing. If you go, I want border security, and I think there should be a fence up at the border. Like, well, fences don't work, and you're a racist, and you go, well, first off, I don't know. Having border security makes me racist, number one, and then number two, you guys all live in gated communities, so I think fences do work. So I'm not signing off on all your crazy ideas just because I'm scared of being demonetized. And that was always my position, which is I have plenty of thought. I am willing to be the most unpopular guy at the table at a dinner party if somebody asks my opinion on something, as long as I know I'm right. And as long as I can back up my argument, then I will be happy to be the least popular person at this dinner party, which I have been, more than once. But first off, my soul and my dignity is not for sale. I'm a comedian. I say what I want, and that's it. I've had a lot of people tell me to stop talking about this and stop talking about that. And my answer is, I'm a comedian. I say what I want.
Yeah, and I wish more people were like that, especially in the entertainment industry, right? And you've written a lot about this, and the cancel culture, and the production, with no safe spaces. So, what's that? How can people avoid cancel culture, and how have you been able to just not basically pay attention to it and not be canceled?
Well, you have to be good at what you do. That's number one.
Sure.
I kind of learned that as a carpenter. If you're a good carpenter, you'll never be out of work. Never. If you're good, you'll never be out of work. And I basically apply that to most all jobs. If you're really good, you won't be out of work, but you have to be really good. If you're hanging around in the middle of the pack somewhere, then you got to shut up. And if you think about actors, they can always hire somebody else other than you to play this role, and so they have to shut up. That's how they've left it in the hands of others. My feeling is I never want to leave it in the hands of others. I don't get jobs, I create jobs. No one ever gives me a job. I'm never cast in this role or given that job. I create my own jobs. And so I've always kind of known, if it's a popularity contest, you're gonna lose.
Right.
And I have lost the popularity contests. I have to create my own jobs, and then I can say what I want. So that's what I've chosen to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done that with your podcast and all your other platforms. You've been able to go out on your own and, literally say what you want, and yeah, I mean, you're a testament to that. And, as you've kind of gone in your newest book, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal, Navigating Our All Woke, No Joke Culture. What was your inspiration for writing that book?
I hadn't written a book in maybe 2 or 3 years. I just felt like it was time to write another one. I found a publisher that wasn't scared to publish what I had to say versus a lot of my older publishers I work with out of Manhattan, New York, woke, those relationships are long gone. Not because I severed them, but because they severed them. I'm the same guy. I have the same opinions. I tell the same jokes. They got woke, and there's no more room for them in that sort of Manhattan cocktail scene for me. So I found a publisher who wasn't scared and took on voices like myself, and we wrote our 5th book.
Right, and I, read it one time through, listened to it. Thank you for writing that and putting your words out. And you've written, several, New York Times bestselling works, and produced all these different things. And you actually have, you produced or co-produced Uppity, right? With is that right?
I co-produced what? Sorry?
Did you co-produce, or did you actually produce Uppity?
Oh, yeah, my company produced
Your company
it.
did. Okay, that was a great piece of work. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so, as we kind of come to the close of this, where, we talked briefly about your passion for cars, and, you have a great collection, you're very passionate about it. Where did that passion come from? Because you had talked about, I want to have that one day, and now you do. So, where did the passion for automobiles come from, and what are some of the cars that you own that you're most passionate about? And, I know you've actually won a celebrity race, and you compete, and you're involved in the automobile industry. So how did that all come about?
I don't know. I've always liked mechanics. I'm probably a little less about the driving and a little more about the mechanics and the engineering of it, which is something that I've always been interested in. I mean, when you drive the car, you get a much better feel for the mechanics and the engineering. But I've always liked them for what they were. Like I like the efficiency. I like race cars because there's nothing on the race car that isn't necessary. There's
Sure.
none of my race cars, for instance, none of them have speedometers, and people sometimes say, "Where's the speedometer?" And I go, "Don't need the speedometer. What's it for?" And they go, "Well, I don't know. Don't you want to know?" And I'm like, "It's just weight, and there's no information you can get from it.
Right.
You get your information from a tachometer, obviously, and temperature gauges and oil pressure and stuff like that. But if you're doing 161 or 163 or 159, like, first off, how are you even going to read it? You know what it's like to race a car. You're not even going to be able to figure that out. And then number two, what information is there? All it is weight and like one more thing to break. And so for me, I like that kind of efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm big into efficiency, and race cars are really about attempting to make something the most efficient they can make them. And anyone who really studies a race car will see the things that they do to just shave a tenth of a second here or there, a couple of ounces here or there, and it's really impressive. It's miraculous. So to me, I think that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's just a creative part, right? The engineering and the innovation of cars and trying to make adjustments. And like you said, knock off a 1,000th or a 10th here and there. And yeah, that's exciting stuff right there. So, as we end, Adam, you have a lot of things going on. I know with your Carolla drinks, your books and everything else you're producing with your production company. So what do you currently have going on for our listeners to hear? And what do you have kind of coming up into the future?
Well, we got all our movies and then a lot of other racing movies we curated on Pluto TV. And we have a chassis channel there. That's our channel. It's CHASSY. It's channel 687 on Pluto TV. It's got all our racing movies, a series called Going Racing with Adam Carolla, where I enter a lot of vintage races around the country. And you can see what it's like from sort of my perspective. We keep it funny, but it's also pretty fun if you're a gearhead. So there's a lot of stuff there. We're always working on docs. We're getting started on a Dan Gurney doc. I think we're going to get started on a Bobby Rahal doc. Many other productions in the way, in the waiting. Also got another book I'm working on, which will probably be out in, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, something like that. We got that another book going, and podcasts, daily podcasts, live shows, play theaters and clubs all around the country. So you can just go to adamcarolla.com, probably find out whatever I'm up to or where I'm going to be.
Yeah, well, thank you. I look forward to the Gurney and those different docs coming out. And last segment before I let you go, we always have the Freedom Fighter of the Week on the Freedom First podcast, and this is someone that's been had a huge impact of getting you to where you are today. And Adam Carolla, who is your Freedom Fighter of the Week?
Of the week, well, the guy I always enjoy and I look at as a freedom fighter and a guy that No Safe Spaces with, that you guys can look up if you want, Dennis Prager. Just a lot of wisdom, very bright guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a big fan of his as well as a good friend. So I'll nominate Dennis Prager, and people can. He does Prager U, a lot of 5-minute, very challenging and smart videos online. I've probably done 4 or 5 of them. And it's pretty interesting stuff. So I will nominate the great Dennis Prager.
That's awesome. And that's actually the second time he's been brought up on the Freedom Fighter of the Week.
Really?
Yeah,
that's good.
He was brought up. I had a young girl from Venezuela on talking, speaking out about against socialism, and she actually brought him up too. And she was on a segment called Americanos that PragerU did. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate you just taking your valuable time out of your busy schedule to join us. And I wish you the best of luck and so much health to your family and yourself. So thank you, and God bless. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. We appreciate you and your support of the show. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave feedback on Apple Podcasts.